Welcome back to my top 100 board game series. This is part 7, numbers 40 to 31. These games are so good that if someone was mugging me to steal them off me, I would hesitate for 2 seconds before handing them over willingly. And if that gets me killed, then I guess I just love board games too much. Let's see what I'm willing to risk my life for. And number 40 is Carcassonne Hunters and Gatherers. So this is a sequel to my number 100 game, Carcassonne, and they've taken the core system of that game, given it a new theme, and added a few things that for me just make it a much more exciting game. So just like in Carcassonne, you're taking a tile off the stack and adding it to the shared area. This time you're creating forests and rivers, and again, you can place your meeple on that tile to try and score from them. And each element has been improved upon in its own way. With the rivers, you place a fisher down, and you don't just score the number of tiles like with the roads in Carcassonne, you score the number of fish that is in that river. So some tiles are way more valuable, adding more fish to your river than others. And it means that rivers are much more lucrative to try and steal from other people. There's a lot of incentives in this game to try and mosey in on other people's territory, and I just really love the reward that you get for that because it encourages more interaction than the original game. But also with the rivers, you have the opportunity to place one of your huts down, and the hut scores for the entire river system. So rivers would normally end when you reach a lake, but here you are scoring every river and every lake that has been connected to that original one. And sometimes that could be the whole board. So you place these huts down and they stay until the end of the game, but you will score every fish in that entire river system. So again, another thing that you desperately want to try and steal from another player. And if you've both got one hut, you're both getting those points, but if one of you gets 2 huts on that river system, then they're stealing all of those points from the other player. Instead of farming, you go hunting, because most tiles have animals on them. And so for every animal that you're connected, you will score points for hunting them. And there's deer and woolly mammoth, and the mammoths are worth 3 points for every one. And what's great is that loads of tiles have animals on them, so I could use this tile to finish a forest or add to a river, but instead I want to add it to my hunting, giving me 2 points because it's got an auroch on it. In the original Carcassonne, you would often draw a tile that just felt completely useless to you, whereas in this, the animals really add something that means most of the time you're going to get something you can use in one way or another, and so it feels less annoying. And finally, you've got the forest. Some of them have standing stones in, and if you complete a forest with a standing stone in, you get an extra turn and you get to play a special tile. But it's not the player who controlled the forest, it's the player who played the final tile, which gives you this interesting incentive to finish other people's forests. You're helping them out a bit because they're getting points and getting their meeple back, but you're getting an extra turn, which is massive. And these tiles are awesome. You either get a tile that's better than what you would normally get, like this one has 3 fish on it, or you get a special ability, like this is a trap that allows you to place it near some animals and immediately score them, hunt them. So effectively stealing them from whoever is trying to hunt them for the end of the game, you get to eat them right now. I think that every edition makes Hunters and Gatherers a more exciting game than the original. I love trying to get these standing stones, get the special powers that are just can really change your game. I love the fight over the river systems that you just don't have as much in the original game, that just make it a much more aggressive game. So not everyone will love it, but for me, like desperately trying to find a way to connect up my river to someone else's so that I can steal all their fish is just such an awesome like long-term strategy that you're hoping for. And they can see that you're trying to do it, so they're trying to find ways to bend that river away from you. It makes for this like ongoing struggle against other players that makes it so much more of an interactive game. And number 39 is High Society, one of my favorite simple card games, and another from my favorite designer, Reinoso. This is an auction game, and one where if you spend too much money, you're out. At the end of the game, you all reveal how much you've spent, and the player that spent the most cannot win the game. Because you're playing as the high society, the rich, highfalutin people. You're trying to show off. You're trying to spend your money to get luxury items like jewelry. But if you spend too much money, then you're not going to be rich anymore, and other people are going to look down on you. So every round, a new luxury item will be up for grabs. and it's worth a certain number of points, you want to have the most points at the end of the game. And you'll take it in turns to bid on this item. So I'm bidding with a fixed hand of currency cards. So I could bid a 3 and then someone raises. And you keep going until everyone passes except one person. And that player pays their cash, they get the card, and we carry on to the next round. But what's interesting about your hand of cards is they are fixed numbers. You can add them together, but once I've spent a 3, I don't have that anymore. And if I use up all my small denominations, then I'm going to be having to start bids with a 10 or a 12. I've even got a 25 in there. So the game is kind of forcing you, through the awkwardness of raising on other people and the way the cards work, to spend more than you want sometimes. And that's tricky because if you spend too much at the end of the game, you lose. It makes the bidding more agonizing than other auction games because it's forcing you into having to pay more money than you think something is worth. The other thing that's burning through all your money are these scandals. These are bad cards that will come out of the deck that force a different kind of auction. Nobody wants these cards. This one is going to halve all the points that you have. So you're all bidding to not take it. Until one player passes and chooses to take it, then the other players will pay that money. So it's making everyone else much poorer, but it's killing your points in the process. Who's winning will change with every auction, but of course, if they've spent too much, they're not going to be the winner. So there's always a chance that if you're in second place, that you could still claim the victory. And the end of the game is a looming threat throughout. You're not sure if you'll have enough time left to get the points you need to put yourself into first place, because once the 4th green card comes out of the deck, the game ends immediately. Hopefully that happens when you're in the lead. What I love about High Society is it packs those tough decisions of an auction, of trying to get a bargain, into such a short, such a small game, and then adds to it this like big reveal at the end where you might find out that you have no chance of winning, and then just also the tension of those scandals, the threat of having all your points cancelled out. It's rare to find such an entertaining game in such a small box. Number 38 is Foundations of Rome, which is something I always wanted, a city building game where you're all building on the same board. And this one is very much a sheep in wolf's clothing. It looks like a big, monstrous Kickstarter game that would be bloated with rules and full of unnecessary components. And it is a big Kickstarter game, but it's such an elegant design. In terms of rules and gameplay, it's just such a streamlined experience. Because on your turn, you do one of 3 things. You either buy a plot of land, placing your marker on it, hoping to be able to get spaces next to each other to be able to build bigger buildings, or you build a building on the plots that you already own, or you take income, which means that you'll have more money to be able to buy future plots of land. And that decision is so hard because there's always plots of land that are useful to you, especially anything that's adjacent to where you already own. You're desperate to snap those up. But if you don't start building commercial buildings, then you won't get as much income when you're claiming income. If you don't start building population buildings, then when it comes to the end of the era, you won't be ahead on the population track, so you won't get that population bonus and you'll be lagging behind other players on points. And if you don't take income, then you won't have the money you need for when the plots you really want become available. And then you've got the civic buildings, and this is where the spatial element really comes alive because they score off adjacent buildings. So this civic building here scores for every residential building next to it, for every person in that building. So if it's next to 2 buildings that have got 6 residents in each, it's going to get you 12 points. So you're looking for plots of land that are adjacent to stuff that you can really score so you can put your civic buildings in and make loads of points off of other people's hard work. It's nice watching the board evolve as the eras go on because you start off with these tiny buildings and then as you win plots of land adjacent to them, you can then replace those small buildings with much bigger ones. You could even change a population building into a commercial one to ruin someone else's civic building that was scoring loads of points off of you. Foundations of Rome is the original game, but then last year they brought out Foundations of Metropolis, which is the same core game, all of the same rules, but without these epic miniatures, this massive box. And instead, it's just got cardboard tiles instead. And I really love that game. It was my top game of last year. But I also do really like the Foundations of Rome theme. And even though I'm not a big miniatures guy, there is just something about watching this board evolve that is appealing to me. And so, since I already have this game, I'm keeping it for now, but it is ridiculous to try and take it anywhere, so it means I don't get to play it as much. So I will always be keeping Foundations and Metropolis, it's just whether I still continue to hang on to this one. For now I am. And number 37 is Dark Moon, which is a hidden traitor game that's inspired by the movie The Thing, because you're all on a moon outpost, and you're trying to survive. Everything is going wrong because in your midst, some of the players are secretly infected. They are the saboteurs, the hidden traitors that are trying to ruin everything without being detected. The infected win by destroying one of the 3 systems that's keeping everyone's alive. You've got the shield, the life support, and just the general workings of the outpost. What's great about these is they snowball. If you damage the life support, you're fatiguing one of the players in the game, so now they aren't as powerful. If you destroy one of these systems, it impacts the actions you can do. So if you destroy communications, no player can issue an order until they fix this. And if you damage the shields, you roll the dice to test the shields, and if you roll badly, that's going to impact one of these other systems. So you're spending the game trying to fix all this stuff so that you can survive, and at the end of every turn, you've got tasks to deal with. And the way you deal with any of this stuff is by rolling dice. You need positive results to be able to contribute to tasks and to fixing stuff for it to be a success. And this is the heart of the game because you roll your dice secretly behind your shield. Nobody knows what results you got. And then you will take one of those dice and reveal it to the other players. It will either be positive or negative. If it's negative, it's hurting the group. And so you've done badly. If it's positive, it's helping, but maybe it's not even helpful enough. It's not a big enough of a number. So the players don't know what you rolled, but they know what you provided. Now, unfortunately, the dice are weighted towards negative. They're more likely to be bad when you roll them. But if you roll like 4 of them, you should hope to get something good, right? Well, that's not always going to happen. And that is what creates this amazing blurriness in this game, because good players will roll badly and have to just serve up a negative dice and take the punishment. And bad players can decide what they put forward. They can send in positive dice to try and win some trust. They can send in negative dice and be like, oh, that's all I rolled, I promise. And nobody knows exactly who's telling the truth. You are having to lie to the other players or convince them that you are being honest, and you're having to read the other players and understand, were they just unlucky or are they actually trying to sabotage? Are they infected? It's such a great system to create that mistrust. From turn 1, something's going to go badly and people are going to start throwing around accusations, even if you were trying to be good or pretend to be good even. Those dice won't always go your way and people won't know whether you were sabotaging on purpose or just unlucky. And you really need to know who to trust in this game if you're going to have any chance of surviving. One of the actions you can do is to issue an order to another player. They can now do 2 actions instead of your 1, so it's way more efficient. But if they're infected, they're going to do those actions badly and you shouldn't have trusted them. If you do think someone's infected, you can vote to quarantine them. That weakens their powers, means they have less influence to be able to sabotage you. So if everyone agrees, then that's a great thing to do. But the worst thing is to quarantine someone that isn't infected, because now you've got one less helpful player and the balance of good guys to bad guys just got a lot worse. This game was originally devised as a simpler version of Battlestar Galactica, which is my number 90 in this top 100. And I do love how they've managed to condense the feel of that game into a much, much simpler experience that still gives you all of that mistrust and lying to each other, but in a game that's less than half the length. And with the right group, this one's an absolute blast. And number 36 is Mysterium. This is a cooperative murder mystery game where one player plays as the ghost and they are communicating how they were killed, who killed them, to the other players through paranormal visions. The ghost is given this player shield which shows all the information they need to get the psychics to guess. So for every player, there's a suspect, a location, and a weapon. On the table in front of the other players are duplicates of those cards, plus a few extras to confuse them. And they will start with the suspects. They will be given clues about the people, and they then have to guess which one of them is assigned to them. The ghost has to haunt their dreams by giving them psychic visions, which come in the form of these cards that are just packed full of surreal imagery that could mean all sorts of different things. And the players that receive them have to interpret them in the right way to lead them towards a particular suspect. This picture of two cats with glowing eyes and a house in the background doesn't really directly connect to any of these characters, but as the psychics, this is all you're being given, so you have to work with what you've got and really try and spot the details. There's loads of details on the cards on the table, and so you've got to find where is the ghost making connections. It could be colors, shapes, ideas. You don't know, but it's your job to work it out. And this is the game. You're given a little wallet with your psychic visions, and you have to study these cards and guess what they relate to. And what I love about this game is it creates so much discussion with the other players. Ultimately, you'll get the final choice, but you are getting the help of other people because they might spot things that you haven't. They might see things in a different way. Meanwhile, the ghost is having to stay completely silent while they listen to your interpretations, and often they're going crazy internally because you're totally missing what they were intending. You make your guess by placing your crystal ball on the character you think it is, and then the ghost will let everyone know if they're correct. If you are right, you get to move on to the next phase, guessing the location, and then finally the weapon. If everyone gets their suspect, location, and weapon correct, you go on to a final round where you get one chance to get the murderer. And if you can do all of that before the clock strikes 7, before the sun rises, then you win the game. But typically, you don't. You make a lot of bad guesses, and you run out of time, and you lose. There are a surprising amount of games on the market that use this kind of surreal imagery to communicate with other players. The first one that did it was Dixit, which for me is nowhere near my top 100. I respect that it sort of inspired games like this, but Mysterium is by far my favorite. I've played a lot of them, and I really enjoy that challenge of trying to communicate with this stuff and trying to understand what other people are trying to get across. And for me, this is just the best package of that experience. I love the murder mystery theme. I love the artwork. I love the cooperation, the discussion with other players. And I just love the spectacle that Mysterium delivers. There is Mysterium Park, which is much smaller than this game, but I prefer the big version because it just makes you feel like you're playing something grandiose. And that's really buys you into the theme just a bit more. At number 35 is Survive the Island, which is one of the most mean, cutthroat games that I own, but also one of the most joyful. The idea is that you're trying to get your people off this island that is sinking into the sea, avoid the sea monsters that are going to kill you, and get to safety. The more of your people you can get to safety, the more points you're going to get at the end of the game. But along the way, some of them, a lot of them, are going to die. At the start of the game, you put your people out onto the island, and underneath each meeple is a number. That's how valuable they are to keep them alive. So you're placing out people in spots that you think they can get rescued the easiest. And you're trying to remember where they are because you never get to look at that number again. But if you can get them out and keep the 6s and 5s alive, that's going to get you so much more points than just saving a 1 or a 2. And then you start taking actions. You're trying to get your people off the island. So the quickest way to do that is to get them into boats. So anyone on the coastline is going to jump into an available boat and start sailing it away to safety. But if you wait for other players, then the other players could join that boat and then they could help sail that boat on their turn. You're sort of creating these short-term alliances because other people can help you survive, but at the same time, you want to survive the most if you're going to win the game. But you also want to get your people off the sand because every turn, the player will pick one of the tiles to remove from the island. This island is sinking into the ocean, and it starts with the sand, then the forest, then the mountains. So if you've got meeples on mountains, they're on high ground, they're going to survive the longest. If they take away a tile that you're on, you're now left in the ocean. You're going to have to swim to safety or at least try and find a boat. It's going to be harder to get out. So you're targeting players that you think are doing well to try and hold them back. And it's these tiles that will add shark and kaiju to the board, these monsters that you need to try and avoid, because if you end up in the same space as a shark, you're dead. And the way you end up in the same space as a shark is that every turn the player will roll the dice. And if they roll a shark symbol, they get to move the shark 2 spaces and eat whatever they come across. So it's not just about getting to safety in the quickest route possible. You want to take your time, work around the monsters that are getting in your way, because if you put yourself too close to a shark or a sea monster and someone has a turn, they're likely going to come and eat you because they want to hold you back. It's cutthroat, but that's the joy of the game, that you're entering into this pact to just go at each other. If you don't get killed by a shark, then someone else will, and rather it be them than you. As the game ramps up, you got to make tough decisions about who you're going to get home, because you're never going to get everyone home. So that's the point. You really need to remember where your 5s and 6s are so that you can at least save them. Because as the board gets smaller and smaller, when you're flipping over mountains, you get whirlpools that are just dragging people and monsters into this whirlpool, killing them immediately. But it's not all hopeless. With some of these tiles that you turn over, you get special powers that can repel a shark, or give you a boat out of nowhere, or use a dolphin to swim quicker to safety. I love that every little detail of the game has a thematic purpose and makes the game more dramatic. You've got the surprise reveals of the tiles to see if you get a whirlpool or not, or whether you're going to survive. The roll of the dice to see if they roll a sea monster and are going to get you because you're so close to safety, but you're also right next to a sea monster. This is the latest reprint of a game from the 80s called Survive Escape from Atlantis, and I used to have the 30th anniversary edition of that game. And I slightly prefer this one. It's more condensed. They've changed a couple of things. The kaiju replaced the whales. They can now go on land as well as sea, but there's less of them. So it's not necessarily that I massively prefer this one over the other one, but I like this kind of new, clean aesthetic. I like that it's a condensed board. So I'm happy to have this new one, and I'm just happy it's back in print and available for people to buy because it's a brilliant game. And number 34 is The Mind, which is a card game all about trying to read your friend's mind. You're playing cooperatively, and all you have to do in the game is play some numbered cards in numerical order. But you cannot talk to each other, and you can't see each other's cards. So each round you're dealt some cards with some numbers on. So I've got 6, 19, and 66. They go from 1 to 100. And you have to instinctively guess when to play those cards into the middle, into a shared pile. So 6 being right at the bottom, I play that pretty quickly. And then I'm waiting. Is anyone going to play anything else? I've got a 19. How long do I wait before I play a 19? Someone else plays a 12. I wait a bit. I play my 19. And then someone adds to it. And you're just adding cards to the stack, trying not to fail and lose a life. Because if you ever play a card that is higher than what someone still has in their hand, so I've got a 66. If someone was to play 77, I'm like, we lost a life. I reveal my 66. And if we lose too many lives, we lose the game. It might not seem like much of a game, and in a lot of ways it isn't, but the experience you get from trying to read when to play those cards, you're looking at the faces of the other people that you're playing with, and you're just trying to sense when's the right time. It's just unlike any other experience I have in board games. It's so intense, you're so invested. There's no getting distracted, looking at your phone. You're all in it, because if you've got any chance of winning, you have to kind of zone in. One of the reasons it's such a compelling game is because you get better at it. You play with the same people again and again, and you somehow learn each other, even though you haven't said anything. There's no extra rules that you're playing with. You are just reading each other better, and it feels so satisfying. When you're getting like 5 or 6 cards each, there's just so many different numbers in play that the gaps between them become minuscule, and you've got to decide when to play your 54. Someone else has got 55, and you don't know that they've got 55, but there's just this weird moment where you kind of creep forward with your hand, and you want to play it, but you're worried. And then when you do actually pull off those moments, which is frequently, it feels incredible. It's like you dodged a bullet as a group, and everyone's just watching in disbelief. In a 4-player game, you're trying to get to level 12, so you've got 12 cards each. I'm not sure I've ever achieved that, but the game gives you enough of like reward that you get that positive feedback from winning really tough situations that you feel like you will get it one day. And that's what makes the game so addictive, that I've played this for like a whole night where we just go again and again because you feel like you're getting stronger as a group and you're getting closer to that victory. I haven't played this one in a while, but the magic of it just lives strong in my memory. And I remember teaching it to people and just seeing their eyes light up. It's so easy to get into. It's so easy to teach, and they get such an immediate response with it. And I've just seen people get completely addicted to it, being not gamers at all. That's what's so great about it. Like, Real Madrid were playing this before like a Champions League final, and they were playing like 8 players. The Mind is very much a love it or hate it game. You might have listened to all of this and just thought, what on earth is he talking about? And if that's the case, then you probably will hate The Mind. But for me and the people that do get something from it, it is something very different to other games, and that's why it's so special and so high up my top 100. And number 33 is Cascadia, a game about building your own patch of wilderness and populating it with animals. It's very much a puzzle game. You've got 5 animals that you can place into your wilderness, and you need to arrange them in a certain way to get the most amount of points from them. So each of these animals will score in their own way. Bears want to be in pairs, and salmons want to be in a long run. So when you're taking the animals and the tiles, you're trying to arrange them in that way to get the most points at the end of the game. But what makes that tricky is the tiles only want certain animals on them. So I might really want to extend my salmon run here, but this tile will only allow a hawk on it. So I'm stuck. I'll have to take it in a different direction and find a tile that will take a salmon. And when I do finally get a habitat tile to map out my salmon run, that doesn't mean there's going to be any salmon available, or maybe other players will have taken it first before I can get it. So it's about planning ahead, hoping for something, but knowing that you should always pivot if you can't get it, because this tile that can take a salmon could also take a hawk or a bear, and I could get points that way instead. Meanwhile, you're also trying to connect up your habitat so you score points for them as well. Each of these tiles has rivers and wetlands and forests on, and so if you can connect them up as well, you're going to score for your biggest one of each type of terrain at the end of the game. And if you've got the biggest type of wetland compared to the other players, you're going to get bonus points for having beaten everyone else. So the game becomes this dual layer puzzle. You've got to try and get your tiles right underneath, but then they have to be in the right positions to help your animal scoring. And what adds to that struggle is you're going to take a pair of habitat tile and animal token from the display. If I want this elk, then I have to take this wetland that comes with it. I can't mix and match. And so it's like, which one do you want more right now? How can you make the other one work with your plans? It's requiring you to think on your feet because they're very rarely going to be paired up in a way that totally suits you. It's a really engrossing puzzle. And one of the things I love about it is how easy it is to keep track of what you're doing. These tiles act as your little stencil for where you want your animals to go. So let's say you've been chatting since your last turn and you're a bit lost. You just look down at your board and you can see, yeah, I need another salmon there to continue my run. That's a really easy decision. And one of the things I love about it over other games of this style is that it feels really easy to pivot. You're not hemmed in by too many restrictions. There's a lot of different ways to score points. It feels very positive. And if things aren't working out, you can't get the tiles or the tokens you need, then there are ways around it. For example, you can expand out in any direction. So maybe your salmon run isn't working over here, but maybe you can add some tiles over this way and you'll come back to that later. You can also use these pinecone tiles. They actually allow you to break the rule of taking a pair of tile and token. You can mix and match, but you got to spend one of these. And if there's 3 animals of a type out when it comes to your turn, you can choose to cull them, put them back in the bag and draw something else, giving you the chance to get the animal that you really need. I'm not typically a fan of these personal puzzle type games where you're focused on your own area because I prefer player interaction. But Cascadia is one of a few of them in my top 100 because of how strong it is. Because it's so easy to keep track of, I find that it is a more kind of social game. You can talk to the other players, see the frustrations they're having. You are very much getting frustrated about certain animals not coming out in the display. And if one does come out, you're so annoyed at the person that takes it before you can. If you're looking for a game like this where you're building your own thing and other players can't ruin your plans, and you want it for 2 to 4 players, then Cascadia is my top pick every time. And number 32 is Deception Murder in Hong Kong, which is a hidden traitor game where everyone is pretending to be detectives solving a case, but one of those detectives is secretly the murderer. And the way they find out information about who the murderer is in this game is through the forensic scientist. That's another role in the game, but everyone knows who that is. And they are giving information to the other players through sort of coded messages. They can't ever talk, but they know who the murderer is, and they know what weapon and bit of evidence was found at the crime scene, and they have to communicate that to the good detectives for them to guess it and win the game. At the start of the game, all of the detectives are given cards to place in front of them. These are 4 murder weapons and 4 pieces of evidence which are associated with them. Everyone's got them. And before the game starts, the murderer will select their murder weapon and their piece of evidence that ties them to the crime so that only the forensic scientist can see. That is what they're trying to get the other players to guess. And they do that by selecting from multiple choice options. So for example, let's say the murderer picked hook and oil stain. Then the forensic scientist has to pick from these multiple choice options to give their information. So for cause of death, they might pick loss of blood because that's how the hook would work. Or maybe it should be severe injury. For location of crime, they might pick storeroom because it relates to where you might keep oil. And then they've got time of death and duration of crime and a smell in the air. The detectives have to look at the answers they've been given and then work out which of the cards around the table it relates to. There are loads of them, so you're going to be focused on a bunch of different things. If they pick storeroom, that might point towards a spork that's in front of someone else. So you start to discuss as a group where your focus should be. And throughout the game, you have one opportunity, each player, to make a guess. They've got to get the murder weapon and the evidence right. And if they get it, they win the game. But there's so many different permutations of not just who it could be, but which cards it could be, that they really need to be sure of their guess. And because there's a murderer and an accomplice in their midst, they're trying to shift focus from the cards in front of them to the other players. Convince them that the interpretation should be about the spork or about something else, and that makes way more sense. If you can get everyone to believe you, to persuade them, then you can get some wasted guesses on things that are definitely not right. And so they run out of guesses to actually try and get you when it comes to it. The difference between Deception and other hidden traitor games that only last like 30 minutes is that you have more to talk about. There's something to go on. It's not that you're just trying to look people in the eyes and decide if they're lying to you. There's evidence to play with and reasons to give, and it makes it interesting for both sides because you've got something to latch onto as the good guy detectives, and the murderers have something to persuade people away from them with, to make arguments. It isn't just about, believe me, believe me. You actually have some hard evidence to work with. And it makes it a slightly better experience at lower player counts than other hidden traitor games, because rather than just hiding amongst a sea of people, you're hiding amongst a sea of cards. There's more of an opportunity to be hidden and get away with it. I love these kind of simple hidden traitor games, but they can be quite divisive. It can be hard just being put on the spot and having people shouting at you saying that you're a liar. And I would say Deception is probably a softer entry to this kind of game because it gives you more of a focus that you're thinking about information rather than just specifically what people are saying. You don't feel quite so targeted if you are the murderer or if you are being accused. I don't think it gets quite as het up as some of those games can get. And number 31 is Through the Desert, another game from my favorite designer, Reinoso, and this one is very closely connected to Blue Lagoon and Rebirth, which were both already in my top 100. It's the original inspiration for those games, and in it, you are building caravans of camels, trying to connect to watering holes and oases before other players to score the most points. You have 5 different caravans of camels that you'll be building on the board. And you've got to decide which one to focus on every turn, because Every turn you get to place 2 camels of your choice, so I could extend my blue caravan, or I could extend my purple caravan. It's all about trying to get the most points and get in the way of the other players. So basic points are from watering holes. As soon as you go onto this spot, you collect this tile. They're worth 1 to 3 points. You get 5 points if you connect to an oasis, and you can connect to the same oasis with different coloured camel caravans. But the spots around them are limited, so you're trying to get in there before the other players. And then, the really cool way to get points is by sealing off part of the board. So if you can create a line of camels that cuts off part of the board using the edge of the map, you get points for every space in that section. And you score all of the watering holes that are in there as well. All of the opportunities are visible to you at the start of the game. You've just got to work out what to focus on and who's going to get in your way. It's an incredibly tight board. You feel hemmed in at all times. And just like his other game, Blue Lagoon, you are trying to spread out in 5 different directions because you want all of this stuff, but you've got to work out which do you jump for first. Because the other players aren't just using their camels to cut off parts of the board, they're trying to cut you off from parts of the board. They're trying to get in your way, stop you from getting scoring opportunities so that they can get them. And one of the most important rules is that you can't combine 2 caravans of the same colour. So if someone's coming over here with their blue caravan that's right by yours, that's stopping you from getting any further. It acts like a force field. Because they can never combine, you can't even come within 1 space of their caravan. So the further they encroach onto your territory, the more you'll be hemmed in. Sometimes you'll end up not moving at all because you didn't get out of the blocks quick enough, you were worried about your other colours, and now there's nowhere for you to go. And you really don't want to get blocked off because there's 10 points up for grabs for the longest caravan in each colour. Through the Desert is the epitome of simple but deep. On the surface, there's nothing to what you're doing. You just pick a couple of camels each turn and add them to your pathways. But there's so much to take into consideration when you make those moves. It does mean that some players can get AP, but I really enjoy just having to look at this board and see where to focus next and worry about what the other players are doing and how they're going to ruin your plans. It's incredibly interactive. This is the latest reprint of it, and I love that they've compacted a proper massive board game into such a small box. That was part 7 of my top 100 board games. If you want to buy any of them, there are links below. To see the rest of the series, please subscribe to the channel. And you can get exclusive videos of mine by signing up to my Patreon. I'm John Perkis, thanks for watching.